great. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? What's the trick? Hold up your hand if you can hear. Ah, look at that. Okay. More volume? Can you hear me? Okay. Oh, it's because of the rain. Is this okay if I do this? Wow. Okay, how about now, David? Great. Thank you so much. I am going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Jonathan promised me a gavel. No, you didn't. But I really want one. So hopefully next year we'll be able to give David a gavel for his inaugural annual meeting. I am so excited y'all are here as we reflect on all we have accomplished together in the prior year and where we are headed next. No? Still no? I'm pretty loud.
It's just not pointed at you.
Okay, how about now? All right. And where we're headed next? Where we're headed next. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Ernheim to give us the invocation. Do you give us an invocation? Do you give an invocation?
God of all generations, we lift up our hearts to you, maker of heaven and earth, source of our strength, witness to our struggles and our hope. In a time shadowed by fear and extremism, we gather firm in our resolve, united by faith, and strengthened by the bonds of community. We bring with us our fear, our anger, and our weariness, but we do not bring them alone. Together we turn from isolation and despair to embrace the light of one another's presence. For the courage that sustained us this past year, for the wisdom passed down through the generations, for the resilience that lives in our bones, we give thanks. Thankful too for the sacred rhythm of Jewish life, for Shabbat candles that soften even the hardest weeks, a chuppah held aloft by generations of blessing, a baby's name spoken into covenant and community, the bittersweet melodies of Yizkor holding memory and love, meals delivered and hands held in times of grief, voices that rise in prayer, in protest, in song, carrying us through joy and through sorrow, rooted always in who we are and all we hold sacred. For this, we give thanks. We reaffirm our sacred work, to build, to learn, to heal, to question, to resist, to dream. May we go from strength to strength. Our vision clear, our purpose unwavering, guided by justice, compassion, and hope. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how essential it is that we are here together. In unison, we call upon your name and ask for your blessing on the work of our hands and our hearts. May all we do, this year and beyond, nurture lives that are connected in community, proud in identity, and meaningful in spirit and purpose. May our gathering tonight renew our strength, our courage, and our commitment to building a vibrant, inclusive Jewish future. And together we say, Amen. It's my honor to invite up Rabbi Knight.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Morid Hagashem. Blessed are you, O God, sovereign of the universe, who brings forth the water in rain in its season. All right. Hi, everyone. It is so good to be with everyone this afternoon, and I am grateful to be together. I returned this afternoon, actually, from serving on faculty at camp, and I can promise you that this meeting feels just a little different than the song session that we had last night, and with hundreds of Jewish kids. So I've just celebrated 19 years of being a rabbi, and I can tell you that in the 19 years of my rabbinate, I have attended many an annual meeting, and those annual meetings are often procedural and business-like. There are reports and votes and updates and transitions. And so I want to begin from a slightly different place. I want to invite you to think for just a moment about one person or one moment or an experience. Maybe it was a Shabbat or a holiday that you attended or a class that you took or a conversation that you had. One experience at Temple Bethel this year that helped you to feel more connected to Jewish life or to this community. And I want to ask you to hold that moment in your mind for just a second. And the reason I want to ask you to think about that is because the numbers and the procedures and the governance, they're all important, right, AJ? They're all important, okay. And what we're really talking about is about what our budget makes possible. What we're talking about is what our lay leadership makes possible, what our staff and our clergy make possible every day. And what we're talking about is what we are creating together. A particular kind of Jewish life for a particular kind of community here in Charlotte. And that is something that is harder to put in a spreadsheet or express sometimes in a vote. It is the child walking into religious school, still a little sleepy, and finding a teacher who knows their name. It is the parent standing in the hallway after a drop-off, talking with another parent longer than they had expected because something in that conversation felt needed. It is the person who comes to a service after a hard week and discovers that the music reaches something that words cannot. It is the family preparing for a B'nai Mitzvah and realizing that their child is not only learning prayers, but beginning to take their place in a story much larger than themselves. It's in the hospital visit. It's in the Shiva meal delivered. It's the conversation after service that spills into the parking lot long after the building goes dark. It's the volunteer who shows up before anyone notices. It's the spaces for men in Brotherhood or women in Miriam's Well or our seniors in Spice or people of all ages in our tribes or our young people in Jam or our youth group in Liberty, whatever the age, whatever the stage, to feel connected in this world. It's the committee member who says yes again and again, the teacher who gives a learner one more reason to feel proud to be Jewish. And increasingly, it is also the expanding fabric of our Jewish lives beyond the walls of Temple Bethel. The gatherings in Shalom Park, the conversations with partner agencies across Jewish Charlotte, the interfaith tables that we sit at, the civic relationships that we're building, the public moments where our community needs steadiness, leadership, and moral clarity. Over the past year, we have seen extraordinary care in the life of our congregation. Care through grief and illness, care through pastoral conversations and life cycle moments, care in classrooms and worship and committee meetings, in acts of service, and in the quiet ways that people notice one another. And we have also seen Jewish reconnection driven in part by rising anti-Semitism, if we're going to be honest. People seeking more grounding, more literacy, more confidence, and more courage. Parents asking how to raise children with confidence and joy. Adults asking for more Jewish language and grounding. And people trying to talk about Israel with honesty and love. People trying to respond to anti-Semitism without letting fear become the whole of the story. Temple Bethel, and I am proud of this, Temple Bethel is one of the places where those questions and those ideas can be held with care, with the seriousness that questions demand, and with good old-fashioned Jewish hope. And over the past year, I have found myself returning often to our mission, to cultivate connected, proud, meaningful Jewish living that inspires change in our world. Connected, proud, meaningful. These words feel different now than they might have felt a few years ago. Connected because Jewish life grows through connection to one another, to our stories, to our rituals, to our learning, and to the shared life of this congregation. Disconnection, on the other hand, is the questions we do not ask. Disconnection is the grief that we carry alone because we are not sure there is a place to bring it. Connection is how we counter that reality. One conversation, one class, one Friday evening or Saturday morning, one moment of being recognized by someone who knows your name. Proud because we want every Jewish child and every adult who walks through these doors to know where they come from, to understand the strength and the beauty of their tradition, and to carry Jewish identity forward with confidence. Pride is not arrogance. Pride is knowing your story well enough to live from it. Meaningful because Judaism must teach and touch real life. And Jewish living that inspires change because what we practice here should shape how we live beyond here, in our homes, in our relationships, and in Charlotte, and in the responsibilities that we take on together. Our vision as a congregation calls us to be a bold Jewish community of deep roots, sacred responsibility, and daring hope. Deep roots because we are part of a 3,500-year-old history, something much larger than any of us, connected to Jews in Charlotte, in our region, and in Israel, and around the world. And we need that story. We need that practice and memory and belonging deep enough to hold us when the ground shakes, as it has been doing. And we aren't the end of the story. All of us are the middle of the story, and it's our responsibility to carry it forward, but to plan and to plant the seeds that will come to fruition well after us. That is our sacred responsibility, because a synagogue is not only a place that serves us, it is a community that asks something of us as well. And daring hope, because Jewish hope is a discipline. It's not just optimism, and it's not denial. It is built through choices and commitments and relationships and the courage to keep investing in Jewish life even when the world feels uncertain. It is the hope of a people who have buried too much and still planted for the future anyway. So this afternoon, we will do the formal work of an annual meeting. There'll be a vote. We'll recognize our leaders. We're going to hear the updates, and we're going to look forward to the future. But I hope that we experience the evening as more than that. I hope that what we can truly see here is what is growing here, that we can give thanks for the people who carry this congregation, that we can feel proud of the role that Temple Bethel is playing in our lives and in Jewish Charlotte, and that we can remember that this community is not built by accident. It is built by the people who decide again and again and again to show up, to care, to teach, to lead, to give, to make Jewish life more alive. I am so grateful to be doing this work alongside each of you. And I want to invite AJ Seacrest, our president, back up to help us reflect on the people, the culture, the leadership, and the shared commitment that are helping Temple Bethel move forward. And I think we'll be able to use our regular mics after this. That was wild.
Okay, David, can you hear me? Oh, great. There we go. Listening to Rabbi Knight and reflecting on this past year, I find myself deeply grateful for this community and for the opportunity to serve as your president. What has stayed with me most is how deeply people care about Jewish life, about one another, and about the future of Temple Beth. And what has become clear to me is that none of this is accidental. It reflects the choices we're making together about the kind of Jewish community we continue to build. There's so much happening across the congregation that it's impossible to capture it all in a few minutes. And I know y'all don't want me to go on and on and on. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to pick up the year in review that's outside, okay, of the sanctuary. If you don't have it already, please pick it up. I'll badger you on the way out, right? It provides a wonderful overview of this past year, everything from how we are building relationships and community, to enriching worship, expanding Jewish learning and spiritual growth, to supporting our youth, caring for one another, repairing the world, to how we are strengthening the financial foundation that makes all of this possible. It really tells the story of why we are in a place of strength and momentum today. So make sure you pick one up. I want to bring a couple of examples to life. One place where this strength is especially visible is in our work around Jewish learning and engagement. I had the opportunity to attend the religious school open house in early May. At the very beginning, before anything else, the children and their parents did something very simple. They played a name game where each parent and child introduced themselves and paired their name with a sign or gesture that felt like them. Some were a little shy at first. Others were fully in it right away, as you would expect. And I'll admit, I had to really think and come up with a sign for myself, and I fell back on the old faithful, right? But within a few minutes, what could have been a room full of nerves became something else, a space where people were smiling, loosening up, and beginning to connect with one another. And later, during the parents' information session, Rabbi Nichols asked a simple question. Why is it important for your child to have a Jewish education? The answers were powerful. Connection to family and history, building Jewish identity, and giving children a foundation for how to live meaningful lives. What was so striking is how thoughtfully it had all been designed. From the opening name game to the final conversation with parents, the entire experience was intentionally crafted to build connection, strengthen Jewish identity, and create community. It wasn't simply an educational program, it was an exercise in belonging. And in many ways, it gave me a window into exactly what Rabbi Knight was describing earlier. How the feeling of community that so many of us experience here is intentionally created. And you can see the impact. This year we had 345 students enrolled in our religious school, our highest enrollment since the pandemic. Moments like that don't create themselves. Rabbi Nichols, who, as you know, is our director of lifelong Jewish learning, together with our education committee, led by Robin Levitt, has spent the past year leaning into the idea that education and engagement reinforce one another by treating parents as partners in their children's Jewish journey. They've been doing this thoughtfully and deliberately, clarifying learning goals, seeking feedback, and creating more consistent opportunities to listen to families and understand what they need. They are also exploring new ways to bring Jewish learning more broadly into congregational life. And that collaboration between clergy, staff, and lay leadership is one example of how Temple Beth continues to grow and thrive. You can see the value of that partnership across other areas as well. For example, the work Cantor Rodnitsky has begun around music and worship. Her vision is not simply about adding more music, right? It's about strengthening how our congregation experiences prayer together, This includes thoughtfully expanding the musical ensemble over time and layering voices and instruments to create a fuller, more supportive sound, one that invites participation and gives people confidence to join in. It is about creating a sense of warmth, connection, a shared voice in the room, where people do not feel like observers but participants in the shared spiritual experience. Because when worship feels meaningful and engaging, people return, bring others, and deepen their connection to Judaism and to one another. And that vision only becomes reality through partnership. Cantor developed this vision and worked closely with her clergy colleagues and lay leaders, including our finance committee, to ensure it could be thoughtfully incorporated into the budget and implemented in a sustainable way over time. The common thread running through these examples and so many others is this: Temple Bethel's strength is driven by the talent, dedication, and collaboration of our people, by a strong and increasingly intentional partnership between our clergy, staff, and our board members, committee leaders, and volunteers. That partnership is what allows us to translate vision into action and values into real experiences for our community. Everything we are building depends on our clergy and staff. Everything. I'm a longtime member of this community and have served on the board for many years. But serving as president has given me a different vantage point, one that has allowed me to see more clearly how the sense of connection, belonging, and meaning that so many of us experience actually comes to life. I've attended conferences with leaders from large congregations across the country. I've met with leaders across Shalom Park and through the greater Charlotte community. I've sat in on clergy and staff meetings. These have all been new experiences for me, and they have given me a deeper appreciation for what it takes to build and sustain a vibrant congregation. And I can say, without qualification, that our clergy and staff are the best in the business. We have a truly exceptional team guiding our spiritual lives, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. And at a time when anti-Semitism is rising, the geopolitical environment remains challenging, and the needs of our congregation continue to grow, the demands on our clergy and our staff continue to grow as well. That makes it essential that we continue to foster an environment where our clergy and staff feel supported, valued, and able to sustain this work over the long term. That includes how we invest in our organization, something that Jonathan will speak more about shortly. It is our shared Jewish responsibility as a congregation to support those who lead, to care for one another, and to help build the future of Temple Bethel. This vibrant community is not something we just experience. It is something we build together. With deep connection, a shared sense of responsibility, and a commitment to a meaningful Jewish future, leadership plays an important role in shaping what comes next. It influences who steps forward, how we support one another, and how we invest in the people who will guide Temple Bethel into the future. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to John Jay, chair of our Nominating and Governance Committee, to lead us through the election of our next group of lay leaders. Thank you.
So, apparently the plan is to follow up those two inspirational speeches with nominating and governance. So, I know what you guys are thinking. How does he get all the glamorous jobs? So, as we move through the slides, this is the members of our Nominating and Governance Committee. I'd like to take just a minute to thank them for their time and their contributions to our governance, to our leadership initiatives, and of course, in assembling the slate of officers and directors that we'll vote on shortly. Speaking of which, this is the proposed slate of officers that we'll vote on in a moment. We don't have time to share highlights for each person, but we are very excited to have these leaders and their breadth of talent leading our temple. These are the nominees for the board of directors, also requiring a vote. Please note that we would normally be voting on one of three classes because we have three classes of directors. However, some of this year's board members moved into officer positions, which left vacancies that we'll fill by voting on these two classes. As with the officers, it is impossible to sing each nominee's praises, but we are very excited to welcome them to the board. These are our continuing directors. We will not be voting on these folks, but I wanted to put this up there so you had a vision of the entire board as it sits. Okay. It's voting time. So I hereby make a motion on behalf of the Nominating and Governance Committee to elect the slate of officers and new board members as proposed. May I have a second? I see several. A plethora of seconds for the minutes. Are there any questions, in seriousness, any questions that anyone has about the process or the folks that are up there? Excellent. We will now move into voting, which is done by a show of hands of those in attendance here in the sanctuary. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Abstentions? Excellent. Thank you, everyone. The motion approving the slate of officers and directors passes. Before I turn it over to Jonathan, I want to recognize the service of our departing board members. We could devote an entire meeting to anecdotes highlighting their gifts, their wisdom, and their commitment to Temple Bethel, but we can't. Instead, I will simply say thank you. Thank you for your service and the many gifts you brought to our congregation through your service. Please join me in a round of applause for these leaders. And now I will turn it over to Jonathan for the Executive Director's report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I want to start with something simple. The state of Temple Bethel is strong. I just really wanted to say that. Honestly, this picture just spoke to me, and it felt like it made sense here. As you heard Rabbi Knight and AJ reflect on, in the world that we live in, where connected, proud, meaningful Jewish living is more critical than ever, our mission is being felt across the congregation in powerful ways. So this afternoon, I want to share three things: what we're seeing, how Temple Bethel is responding, and what we are building to sustain this community for the future. So first, what are we seeing? We now exceed 1,000 households. Our religious school, as AJ mentioned, has reached its highest enrollment since the pandemic and has continued a strong upward trajectory year over year for the last several years. This year, the temple celebrated 50 B'nai Mitzvah, and over 75 teens joined us weekly throughout the year at various programs, whether it was learning together at Hebrew High, building friendships at Liberty, serving as Madrachim in our religious school, tutoring B'nai Mitzvah students, or becoming confirmands in our community. More than 480 people participated in Share Shabbat. These are just a few of the highlights of the year. We've seen strong adult learning, vibrant holiday participation, growing young adult engagement, extraordinary pastoral care, and a community that continues to show up for one another. And our most important growth is not just numerical. Underneath the numbers, more congregants are reaching out for Jewish community, care when life is hard, learning that gives language to their questions, worship that grounds them, connections to Israel and the Jewish people, opportunities to serve, and relationships that make them feel less alone. More families want their children to feel rooted and proud as Jews. More adults are looking for belonging and spiritual grounding. All of that is an extraordinary blessing and an extraordinary responsibility. And that brings me to my next point, how Temple Bethel is responding. Together, we've stepped in. We stepped in with pastoral care. We stepped in with care across the congregation. Our clergy and staff provided more than 700 pastoral touchpoints in the last year. And just as an example, we supported families through 90 deaths of loved ones. Not just numbers, but these represent the hospital rooms and funerals and Shiva Minyanim, phone calls, quiet conversations, and sacred moments when people needed to know their congregation was there. We also stepped in through service in the community. We stepped in through public Jewish life. Through our partnership with Sterling Elementary, our congregation supported 50 families who were facing immediate food needs during the ICE raids and spent countless hours reading to children and supporting teachers. Because of her extraordinary work leading our efforts in Sterling, with Sterling Elementary, Ruth Portis received Meckman's Bridge Builder Award at their annual awards breakfast. You can see the picture. Yeah. Congregants also showed up through food drives, through coat drives, Abraham's Tent, Pride Outreach, Holocaust education, and other acts of Tikkun Olam in areas of social action led by our Social Justice Committee. At Providence Day School, approximately 300 community members gathered for a Friday night Shabbat experience organized by our congregants with Rabbi Knight, helping Jewish life become visible, proud, and connected to the wider Charlotte community. We also stepped in with Israel. We stepped into the complexity, the learning, and the responsibility of helping Jews in Charlotte stay connected to Israel, to the Jewish people, and to one another at a time when those connections are essential and can sometimes feel hard. Many of us carry Israel with love, grief, fear, pride, frustration, hope, and responsibility. And at Temple Bethel, we hold all of that. We hosted one of our most prominent Israel scholars in residence to date, the preeminent diplomat and international lawyer Tal Becker, in partnership with the Jewish Federation. We created space for substantive Israel conversations throughout the year, including in a powerful session on Yom Kippur afternoon. And through Yom Yisrael in our religious school, our children explored their ancestral connection to Israel with joy and curiosity. In a year when many Jews have felt isolated, exposed, or unsure how to speak, Temple Bethel kept creating places where Jewish identity was strengthened. If we want our children to grow up to be proud to be Jewish, if we want our teens to carry Jewish confidence into college and beyond, if we want adults to feel less alone, then Temple Bethel will continue to be a place where people are cared for, challenged, connected, and called to Jewish life with seriousness, warmth, and courage. To keep doing this well, we have to continue to build capacity. Healthy organizations don't simply keep adding activity and hope that the center holds. They learn, adapt, and build systems that allow the mission to thrive. Much of that work is not easy to see, or not always easy to see, whether it's staffing, planning, the communications, the facilities, the safety, the technology, or the financial stewardship. This year, we hired Diana Warth as Director of Development. Diana's here somewhere. Hi, Diana. We can clap, sure. We completed an operations management transition. We built a night and weekend hospitality team to increase our programmatic bandwidth. We promoted Madeline White to an expanded communications management role. Congratulations to Madeline. And in the coming year, we will be adding to our pastoral support and engagement teams. These are staffing and organizational updates, but they represent investment in Jewish experiences at Temple Bethel. All of this is about making sure that Temple Bethel is there for you and your family. When you call with a question, when you come from a program, when you invest in our mission, or when life brings celebrations or illnesses, losses or transitions, or uncertainty. The goal is simple, that this congregation is always here to meet you with care, connection, and Jewish grounding, so you never have to walk these moments alone. We also strengthened our systems and infrastructure. We worked with our professional security advisors and the Foundation of Shalom Park Security to revise and reinforce our security and safety policies and procedures and trainings. We are in the process currently of deploying a new camera and access control system, and later this month we expect to begin a restoration and upgrade of our Providence Road Gate. We also formalized facility management and IT partnerships with the Foundation of Shalom Park, and later this year we expect to begin a major HVAC overhaul, which is something our board, finance committee, and building advisors have been working on for years. I know not all of you came to the meeting to hear about HVAC, IT, and access control. But I know all of you know how much this work matters. Safety matters, reliability matters, and a building full of Jewish life needs systems that support that life. We're also becoming more intentional about learning and improvement, and just a few examples. As AJ mentioned, our education committee is strengthening our feedback and evaluation practices. Our engagement committee is focusing on everything from new members to post-B'nai Mitzvah timelines to the richness of our cohort life. Our strategic planning committee is helping to translate big aspirations into clear goals, ownership, and follow-through, including a new internal system for tracking more than 125 tactical goals that we've already set. Across all of this, we're asking what's working, what our congregation needs, what's changing, and how we align our resources with our mission. Which brings me to finances. Because our budget is one of the clearest expressions of our values, Temple Beth is financially stable, and with a thoughtful, diligent finance committee led by Steve Friedman, we are budgeting both with confidence and discipline. For the year just ending, we're projected to finish with nearly $3.8 million in revenue against $3.7 million in expenses, ahead of plan by about $100,000. We don't view those dollars as a windfall because they reinforce a broader plan that helps us support our reserves, manage the timing, and make needed operational investment in the years ahead. We are raising before we spend and using today's strength to build tomorrow's capacity. This year also showed real philanthropic momentum. L'chaim Temple Beth generated approximately $450,000 to support the congregation, allowing us both to support our budget as well as adding $100,000 to our endowment. Our invested assets in our endowment now stand at just over $9 million and will be strengthened by significant leadership pledges to grow that. These results tell us that members and donors believe in what Temple Beth is becoming and that they're willing to invest in Jewish life, learning, care, security, staff, clergy, and the sacred experiences that make all of this possible. Looking ahead, the board has approved a budget of approximately $4.1 million. It is responsible and forward-looking. It relies on operating resources we have accrued and our objectives for the coming year to make important investments in development, engagement staffing, pastoral care, music and worship, as well as security and HVAC. This is all intentional. After more than 18 months of growth planning, our development committee has launched the Deep Roots Daring Hope, Our Temple, Our Future, a parlor meeting series about our congregation's needs, our plans to meet them, and the resources required to get there. And I would be remiss not to say this directly, as I do every year. If you've not yet made your My Temple commitment, now's a great time to do it. And more importantly, if Temple has shaped your life or your family's life, I hope you'll consider becoming part of our legacy society or making an investment in our endowment. This is how we build a deeper culture of generosity, steward it well, and sustain meaningful Jewish life for generations. And if you haven't signed up for a parlor meeting yet, I really encourage you to do that. You can find information on our website, and we'd love to have you over the next couple of months. We are focusing on a stronger development function, not because we just want to raise more money, we do, but really because of the impact that it has, to build deeper relationships, to steward the congregation well, to broaden the circle of participation, and to create a durable congregation sustained into the future. Our budget tells us that Jewish learning matters, that pastoral care of our congregation matters, that our worship and our music matter, that our community involvement and tikkun olam matter, that safety matters, and that sustaining the clergy, staff, and leadership all matter. And it says that we are choosing to build a future with intention. Our goal is not simply to build a bigger congregation. Growth is a fact, and we are preparing for it. Our goal is to be stronger, more connected, more sustainable, and more courageous. That's what we are building, and it will take all of us. As we look ahead, I feel grateful for the generosity of our congregation and the trust of everyone here and online and across Temple Beth, who choose community actively, intentionally, and with heart, time and again. I'm grateful for our community partners and the unity of Jewish Charlotte that makes us all stronger. I'm grateful for the leadership of our remarkable clergy, who are truly the best team a congregation could hope for, and grateful for our staff, whose dedication cannot be appreciated and celebrated enough. And finally, I'm grateful for our board and committee leaders and volunteers whose vision and support are paving the way forward. So we are not standing still. With deep roots in sacred responsibility and daring hope, we're building a future of Jewish life together. I look forward to a wonderful year to come with all of you, and I thank you. And I would now like to welcome Ken Rodnitsky for a closing song, and after that, we're going to gather next door in David Silverman Social Hall for some refreshments. Thank you all for being with us.
I'd like to invite back up our president, A.J. Sechrist, to close our meeting.
Thank you so much for coming. Please make sure you grab the year in review, and please join us in the Silverman Social Hall for Nosh. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. In 5.